Thank you, God.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to this edition of Sagionic 1027. We are so glad that you decided to join us today, and I'm very eager to introduce everybody to our special guest. However, before we introduce you to our guest, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Sagionic 1027. So the word Sagionic means movement by movement in time. It is Greek, and I'm Greek. So when I received that word, it was like, oh, wow, how special is that? Well, then, if you just take the word sagion all by itself, the word sagion, it means carriers of wisdom.
Mm.
And so, our goal, our desire at Sagionic 1027, how do we interview business mindsets? How do we interview those who have navigated through the terrains of life, who have been steadfast, and who have walked away with punctuality, with good relational skills, amongst others? And so you could be in any vocation. You don't have to be a business owner, a ministry owner, or a CEO. It could be anybody. Say, for instance, like my husband. He's been with the same company for 31 years, right? That speaks volume. So today, our special guest, I met her under a peculiar setting years back, and yet fell in love with her right away. And she has just been a delight to watch her as she continues to reach out to people. She's retired from the Boeing industry. She has over 3 decades under her belt of that. And she's traveled around the world. She's been sought after to be a speaker in many different settings. And if you were to sum her up into one out of her words is, there is life after retirement. So
Yes.
let's all give our sister Frances Johnson, Pastor Frances Johnson, a hand. Yeah, set all the
Yay!
crowds. So Sister Frances, today's program is all about you and what you feel is of utmost necessity to share with our viewers. So where would you like to start today?
Wow, that's a really broad and open question, because I'm a talker, and being a talker and being a pastor, the most I could share a whole bunch of things, as it relates to my journey of being employed, my journey as a pastor, my journey as a mom, my journey as a business owner. And so it's it's a it's a broad question. So repeat it one more time.
Okay, so then I'm going to help you. Okay, I'm going to help you out here. Okay, so I want you to think of who you are today. Okay, think of the career you landed in. Think of the, I'm going to call it extracurricular activity in the form of ministries, right? If you go back, show us how, yep, this said this was going to wind up happening. This is going to wind up happening. This is going to. So take us on a journey, not per se a testimony, but on, yeah, this is interesting because I did this straight out the gates,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
so share a little, take us a little bit on the backdrop.
So when you were speaking about the word Sagion and the process of going from the journey from one journey, the one word that sticks out in my mind is a biblical term, which is chronos.
Okay.
That things happen chronologically, and excuse me. One of the things that I always wanted when I was a young person, I've always wanted to work at the Boeing Company, wanted to work for the Boeing Company. And I tried to get an interview, and for some reason, I couldn't pass the typing test. But I think it was, yeah, and I think the minimum was like 35 or 40 words per minute, based upon, I think, and the minimum was the maximum you could get in errors were three. And for
Okay.
some reason, I could not pass the test, right? But there came a time that I started working as like a Kelly girl,
Okay.
going into Boeing, and my children were young. And that's how I really entered into Boeing. That's how it wasn't just keep going. In fact, when um, an HR manager gave me an application. At that time, they kept applications in their drawers. Now everything is online, you apply online. But at that time, it was a written form. And so he told me, he says, don't sign it, don't put the form in now, don't put the application in now. That if you do it now, I'm going to deny that I know you. I'm going to deny that I gave it to you. And
Okay.
onto the application. And so as I began to work for Boeing, I realized that it was such a massive, massive company. And I had never worked in such a massive setting like that. Even though it was in an office setting, I've always been in the area of administration. And one of my gifts, one of my natural gifts is administration. And one of my spiritual gifts is, both in the same,
Yeah.
is administration.
Yeah.
And so I just happened to work for another HR manager, and he asked me, was I ready to put in my application? I said, no, I wasn't ready. It was just overwhelming. And one day he saw me. I was working, sitting for another manager, working for another manager. And he said, are you ready to turn in the application? I said, yes, I'm ready. After all, I'm getting paid Kelly girl wages. If I
Yeah,
use
yeah,
a
yeah.
it was another dollar extra, $4 or $5 extra. But I want to tell you that when this man said, he said, I want you to call and make the phone call to this lady and and have her tell her I said to give you an interview and give you the typing test. And so I said, okay. And I wrote her name down. And as he turned to walk away, I was praying on the inside. And so my mouth didn't move. I want the listener to understand I was praying within my heart.
Okay.
My mouth is not moving, but in my heart, I was saying, God, you know how I hate to call people and name drop. I wish that he would call himself. And before I could finish the sentence, he turned mid step and came back to my desk. He said, I think I'll call her now. And he made that call, set up the appointment, and set up that appointment. And 32 years later, I can testify God has been good. He kept me on that job, great work ethics. I can't always testify to punctuality because thank God I didn't have to, thank God I didn't have to punch a clock. Okay, I didn't have to punch a clock,
Okay.
but I had people that were gracious. I mean, maybe I'm running 2 or 3 minutes late, and I started when I started Boeing. My youngest son was 2 days shy of his fourth birthday. 2 days shy of his fourth birthday. So it was like getting him ready, getting the him to the daycare, and then going to work. And so I just want, if I can, I want to speak to all the mothers out there, all the young moms out there who, you're doing the best that you can, trying to get to work, trying to make it happen. You have young kids, sometimes you have a baby on the hip and you're carrying another baby, but do what you can to make your life work. That's the one thing that I can tell you. And sometimes we raise our children to be kids, latchkey kids. My children were latchkey children for a certain period of their for the latter years of their life, because I worked at night. I had great neighbors to help me with my children when I went to worked in Auburn. And so my journey as an employee, and especially as a working mom, I think that just really prepared me for life. And so when I say that there is life after retirement, I mean, I spent 32 plus years at Boeing, but that's at one company. I think overall I have worked probably 45, 46 years of my life, maybe even more than that. of my life. And of course, I started when I was 3 years old, right? I couldn't help but throw that one in.
Yeah, yeah, and you know
But
what? I really appreciate that this is what was laid upon your heart to share, because not everybody is given that. Oh well, you just get to stay home with the kids, right? And
yeah,
then so to be able to balance, I was outside of the home. I was outside of the home until I was done rearing all the kids, right? And they
yeah,
survived. They did. They survived. And
yeah.
other people were put in, but I think it's really good that you don't stay with the company for that long unless you chose to partner with that steadfast mindset.
Well, that's good that you're saying that because I didn't have a partner. All I had was me. All I had was
Yes.
me. I say it like this: I raised my children with the help of the Lord, with the help of my parents, and a black leather belt. Now, you guys can put that where you want to, but that's how I raised my children by any means necessary. And so I had the help of the Lord. I had the help of my mom and my dad. I had the help of a few neighbors that would check in on my children because at that time, my I had been divorced. I had been divorced for a number of years. When I started working for Boeing, I was divorced already. And so I raised my children with the help of the Lord. I was going to say by myself, but I raised them with the help of the Lord, and like I said, my parents. But and so I taught my children how to do things. It's like teaching them and training them. And I don't even know how we got in this conversation, but maybe someone needs to hear
That's right.
this. But
That's right.
one of the things is that diligence, your diligence as a parent will pay off. And sometimes they think, women raising children and children growing up in a single parent home will someday be a statistic. I feel the Holy Spirit right now, but I want to say statistically, my children are doing well. Statistically, I had two graduates. Statistically, I have two children that have been married for 20 years, 20 plus years. One is making it to 21 years of marriage that have, come on, statistically.
That's right.
I'm a business owner. Statistically, I own two homes. Statistically, my children have their own homes and paying their own way and running their own lives. And so that's why I want to encourage single parents and
That's right.
encourage the mothers that are trying to make it happen. Encourage the dads. You will get through this period.
That's right.
Sometimes life can throw you a curveball, and sometimes life can get rough, but you can make it through whatever situation you're going through. I'm here to tell you, I have survived them all
That's
of them,
right.
all
That's
through
right.
the teen years.
That's
Teen
right.
years were difficult, but I've survived them all. I have survived them all.
So kind of break something down for me, okay? Or for us, for our viewers, okay? So
Yeah,
let's think about this just in parenting, okay? It doesn't matter one parent, two parent, three parent, four parents, because that's the case in some households, right? Because you got the mom and the dad over here, the mom and the dad over here, and then the kid back and forth or whatever, right? Um, so think of what is if you were to say, a simple lesson or what like a treasured characteristic that you could pass on to a mom, you could pass on to a dad, that what can they do practically, tangibly in the life of a child during those years of you're working and you're giving everything over here so that the paychecks can come in over here so that you could raise them over here, right? So you got two different, you got all these different lanes that you got to function in as a parent, as a
yeah.
professional. So what kind of things nuggets could you give to our viewers?
Well, Sean, one of the things that I would say is make sure that you are an active listener. I watch so many parents, and for me, there were times that I would come home and my daughter, I have two sons and one daughter. And so my daughter would stand next to the stove and she would share with me her what she was doing in the play, and she would act it out and I would be in my own world and stirring the pot and saying, uh-huh, 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 really did. And and so now I imagine I'm in the pot right now. Our parents today's world now, this is 40 something years ago, this is when my kids were growing up. So now I'm in the pot, then I was in the pot, but today's parents are usually on this. This is one of our number one enemies. Even the platform that we're on now, and I'm not talking about just the platform, but the computer. Our parents, many parents are so absorbed in their own worlds that they are not listening to their children, actively listening without something up to their ear or with their eyes not focus on them. And when our children are talking, we need to have eye to eye contact. That's the one thing they need to know. They need to know that we are listening. And I'll share this with you. Even my son David, just before you and I got on the online, my eldest son David phoned me, and I told him I'd call him right back. Well, he was one of my I think he's the one that taught me how to be a parent. If you know what I mean. He
Yes,
was he was
yes.
a little tougher than the other children. He was a little tougher to raise, he was a little more challenging to me and challenge authority and that type of thing. And so we had to work things and work and work and work with our relationship. I'm mom and you're the child, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember when he was playing football and he would be 15 or 16 years old. No matter how tired I was, he would come in and lay next to me and tell me about his day. And there were times when I really heard the whole thing and I could give him advice. There are times that I dozed off. But having that room, and my point is to have that space, create that space where your children can feel invited to come and welcome to come and share their thoughts and their minds with you. Sometimes they're trying to share their hearts with us and we're not paying attention. We're not listening. They're sending us signals and we're not picking up on it. My daughter, for her communication style was to write notes to me, write letters to me, what she disagreed or how she felt about a decision I made. And so that communication, if you can keep the lines of communication open, and if you can look in your child's eyes, put down whatever you're doing, and when you're going to talk with your child or they're going to talk with you, take away the distractions so that they know that you are actively listening to them, actively listening to them.
Amen. You know, and Sister Frances, wouldn't you also say that the devices, the distractions,
Yeah.
if you spend your time, I'm going to call it giving alms to these distractions, when you go to lay your head down on the bed at night, you are not going to be at peace.
There are times you're not at peace, there are times and then, well, and well, I'm going to say there are times that I think parents, um, there, no matter, and I know sometimes they're going through difficult things and they get into their own worlds, they get into their own worlds. And I'm not here, because I have a little over 40 years. Like I said, I had my daughter at 3, so my daughter is like 40. 48, so I've had 48, and I'll go and say I've had 46. Maybe the first 2 years doesn't count because you're newly at
Yeah, yeah,
puberty,
yeah.
right? You're just
Yeah.
beginning. You don't even know yourself,
Yeah.
especially if you're a young mom,
Yeah.
And so I have those years of experience, and so I'm not gonna. It's like I want to help the working mom, help the working dad, and I'm not going to send them a guilt trip because they do go to
No,
sleep
yes.
and sleep and they rest and they sleep in peace. But I just want to remind them that you know what? It's like I need you to take away the distractions to focus on your kid. The one thing that, and I'll share this with you,
Okay.
I recall taking my sons to the Mariners game,
Okay.
and I always said that I took my sons to the Mariners games and to the Sonics games. Um, when we could and when we had tickets through my job, and they were real inexpensive, where I could take my whole family. All four of us could go to the baseball games and things like that. And um, and so I would take them, not trying to be a dad, but I was always a mom. I never tried to claim and play the role of being mom, um, versus a mom, and then trying to play a father. No, no, no. I was always mom, and I've always taken my kids to games, to encourage them. And so my sons and I were at a Mariners game, and I remember behind us, directly behind us, there was a dad and his son, and then there was his co-worker that was next to him. The kid was sitting in the middle. Now the co-worker kept talking business, and he kept talking to the dad. He would talk business into the about the game. And the kid, it broke my heart, and I wanted to turn around and say, "Pay attention to your kid," because
Uh,
the kid kept saying, hey dad, did you see that? Hey dad, look at this." And the child was ignored, and my heart was breaking. Listen, I don't know how many times that child and how often they had that opportunity to share a game like that. But sometimes we have these rare moments that we have with our kids, even our adult children.
so, would you say that whatever the moment is, make it special? Whatever the
Make
moment
it
is.
special.
So, for you, your daughter, she knew she had her mom's ear. She didn't have to know what was going on inside the mom's mind, right? But she knew she had her mom's ear. Because
Yeah.
if I look back in my childhood, my mom had six, and she was a business owner, and she was spread, right? But she would take us on outings to the store, to the grocery store by
Yeah.
ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And so when you got, or I was my mom's child who canned apples with her in the middle of the night, right? Or did things like that. And so that was a memory, a moment,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
so
Yes.
whatever the moment looks like,
Yeah.
I think of even like one of my grandsons. I say, oh, so we're graham cracker and my husband's Pop Tart. Okay, those are our names, Graham Cracker and Pop Tart. So I'll say, oh, do you want to come help Graham Cracker? And he gets so excited, and he's two. He's two. And he is
Yeah.
so excited to go. So because that's a moment I'm there, I could bless my daughter, right? But
Yeah.
then in blessing her, okay, let's do her laundry. She's a working mom, right? Let's do her laundry of two kids under two, right? But let's turn it into something special, you
Yes.
know
Yes.
and so it doesn't have to be a cookie cutter thing, and it
No.
has to look like this.
No. And that's the thing. It doesn't have to look like this or that, but a parent knows when something they can sense. And sometimes the importance to the child does not always register to the parent. But parent, you got to wake up to say, if this is important to him or her, then it's got to be important to me. Or either, we can say, you know what, sweetie, I want to give you full attention. Here's another skill. I want to give you full attention, and right now I can't. So give me 15 minutes, and I'll be right back and then you can tell me all about it. We can talk all about it. And so, those are a couple of things that I would leave for parents.
Yeah.
Active listening, active listening.
That's
Yeah,
really good, and because if you think of it, right? So we had a psychologist on, was my last interviewee, and I did the stick person thing on, all four of these kids are raised in the same environment, but they all chose to walk out different things because of their
yeah,
why or what they took away from it, right? And so and also if we think of the word, it says those that are elder ought to instruct those that are younger, right? Well, back in the day, we didn't have computers. We didn't have cell phones, right? So
no,
you learned from your mom. I learned who learned from her mom, and so on and so forth, right? So wouldn't you say that the next generation is always about how can we, some of the things we walk away with, we want to walk away with, and other
yeah,
things we want to change. So not necessarily do we learn things from our own biological family, but perhaps we can learn it from another family.
observing, yeah,
Yeah.
observation.
So share something in your life that helped you to excel by learning it from somebody else.
Oh my gosh. There's so many ways. One of the things that I like to do is that although I'm a conference speaker and I've spoken at many different platforms on different platforms, but I also enjoy going to conferences, and sometimes I was not able to formulate exactly where I was going.
Okay.
But as I sat up under the word, I knew, it's like my calling, my gifting. My gifting as I begin to get closer with the Lord, and as I begin to walk with the Lord, the gifting that was growing inside of me and accepting the will of the Lord, that gifting began to start blossoming. It was already there. We are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we have these gifts in us. And let me see if I have this. No, I'm not going to look for it because I didn't have it written out. But the Lord will speak in mysteries, and I'm paraphrasing it. But it's up to the king to search them out.
That's a Proverbs.
That's in
It,
Proverbs. Yeah.
it's in the king's heart to weigh out a matter.
Yeah,
Weigh
that's it.
out.
Weigh out the matter. And I have it here, but I didn't want to take it and say, let me see where it's at,
Yeah.
right here. And so
Yeah.
it's up to the king. It's up to the king to search it out,
That's
to
right.
weigh it out, to weigh it out. And so we have these gifts and talents on the inside. And so it's us to search them out because we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And so, anyway, it's up to us to search them out. And so, as I begin to self discovery continuously, and let me say continuously because it's not a one time thing. As we begin to walk in this life, as we begin to go course by course, we are steadily um, getting developed. We're steadily learning. We're continually growing. And so there were areas that people spoke into my life by sitting up under their ministry that propelled me to the next level. I hope I'm making sense to
Total
you.
total sense. Total sense.
And
You are.
so, yeah, and so there were people that spoke into my life, even when I went from one ministry and set up under another pastor. When I left one place that said women were not called to preach, women had no place in ministry, women, women did a lot of things, but they had no place in the pulpit. God never called, and all these sorts of things that, and I'm not trying to get doctrinally on you, from where folks are today, but when I left that setting and followed the Lord's leading to go into another house of worship, to join and sit up under another pastor, which was Pastor Bass, my former pastor, who's gone home to be with the Lord. That's what propelled my next journey into ministry. Although I didn't readily accept the calling, but that's what propelled me in, ushered me into my next journey and my next season of ministry. And one of the first things I did, were reluctant. Some of us go reluctantly into it. I can feel the Lord kicking some folks in the behind right now. That
Yeah.
some folks say, "Oh, there was a hand that pushed me." Yeah, there are some folks get the hand that pushed them. The other folks get the boot.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, as you're saying that, I'm literally seeing like somebody's foot come up and just push them out there. Get
I'm
on this
telling you,
train.
I'm telling you, and so I got the push, and I reluctantly started the children, and I could hear God saying, "Start the children's ministry, start the children's ministry." And what happened is I went to a women's group, and they were saying, everyone was sharing what they were going to be doing or what their plans were, and I said, "Well, I keep hearing about the Lord wants me to start a children's ministry. I don't want to, I don't even like kids. I'm not trying to start a children's I had 3 kids, right? And but my thing is, I wasn't, I loved being around older kids, but
Uh
little kids,
huh.
I wasn't fond of, hanging out with little kids,
Yeah, yeah.
and not until I became a grandma, that's changed everything. But I started. So they said, "Well, I have this book. Oh, I have this music. Oh, I have this material." And the next Bible study, they brought all this stuff in for me to start a Bible class for children. So that took away every excuse I had, every excuse. And I want to tell you, I started, sometime, and here's a point here. Let me drop this in on you.
Okay.
Never despise small
That's
beginnings.
right. That's right.
Never, even as a business owner, never despise small beginnings.
That's
Even
right.
if you start in a company like Boeing, when I started in a company at Boeing, my first wages for the first 6 months were under $6. Under $6. My salary was $13,500. I was still poverty level. Let me tell you, but I feel the glory of God. But don't despise small beginnings. And
That's
listen,
right.
I started out I made an announcement, invited all the kids to our children's Bible study, our fellowship. And I had my 3 children and a neighbor's 2 girls. So I had 5 kids. The next week, the following week I had my 5 kids. Then I had 11 children. The following week I had 15 children. The following week after that I had 20 kids. And on an average I had 20, 25, 23 to 25 kids every single week for 2 years. And let me tell you, children got saved there. There were times parents did not want their kids to come to my Bible study. And I would say, "Oh, it's just a little fellowship. The kids just come in and eat popcorn, and sometimes we have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and we sing, and then we sing and we read stories, and that's about all that we do." And so I kind of did it like that, and
Okay.
I changed the name from children's Bible study to fellowship, because if I said Bible study, many of the parents didn't want their kids to come. But when I changed it to fellowship and said we read stories and eat peanut butter and jelly sandwich, they freely let their children come. And the
Yes.
children would come. It got so that the children would come. And one day I got discouraged and I looked out of the window because everybody's kid in our neighborhood, in my neighborhood, their kids were in my living room, and I saw once the kids got in my neighborhood, I seen the mothers and the fathers jumping in their cars, going off to the grocery store, doing their shopping. They were free for an hour. Why? Because friends had their kids for an hour. And let me and and the enemy tried to put a little guilt trip on me, tried to make me sad and tried to make me feel bad. You're sitting up there watching everybody's kids and they gone on about their business. It's like, no, it's for the glory. Come on, somebody. Make sure that what we do, sometimes it looks like people are getting the benefit, and they are. They are getting the benefit of my teaching. They are getting
That's
the
right.
benefit
That's
of
right.
having their kids in my home. Yeah, that did buy them an hour of time, free time. Maybe they needed it. But listen, I had children to get born again, children that we lived in an area that were impoverished. And so my children got bikes. And so they we would sing a song that um, tell him Jesus is on the main line. Jesus is
Jesus on the
on
main
the main
line,
line.
tell him
Tell
what
him
you
what you want.
want.
And so they would
Jesus on
say,
the main line,
that's
tell him
it.
what you
Tell him what you want.
want.
And so they would say, I got one. If you want a brand new bike, if you want a brand new bike, tell him what you do. You know, every family got a brand new bike that year. We sung it
Mm.
and we sung it and we thank you, Lord God. We sung it, we
Mm.
believed it until it became a reality.
That's right. That's right.
Until it
That's
became a
right.
reality.
That's right. Because you chose to serve where you were needed. Right?
Yeah,
So if we think
yeah.
of your and it goes far past don't despise the small
Woo!
beginnings, right? Because
Yeah,
if you said, "No, I'm not going to be in that position at work. I'm better than that. I'm not
yeah.
going to be in that position. I'm better than that." Right? So how could you directly correlate the positions you were in over here were manifested in the platforms he put you over here in another country?
In another country, it's different. So in another country, when I went, say for instance, and my main lines of ministry is in the Philippines, I love, absolutely love my people. I
Okay.
love my people. I love my people. And so when I went, my first visit there, I had to reshape and recondition my mind
Huh.
because I came from a place of privilege. Any American that has running water, you can go to the tap and you have running water. Any American, when they say that, if I say, Sean, I'm gonna serve you a cold glass of soda pop, a Sprite or Pepsi or Seven Up, ginger ale. I love me some ginger ale,
Okay.
and I have ice cubes in it, and it's ice cold. That's a place of privilege
Wow.
because cold at that time for them was sitting your soda in the shade in a cool place in the shed
Huh.
that it was not hot.
Uh-huh.
It was not
Uh-huh.
hot. And so I had to change my thinking of where I was coming from. I had to not complain. One of the things I had to learn real quick is that uh, uh, my hair,
Okay.
my hair in the hot Philippines
Does special
sun.
things. Special things.
Oh my God! No, it went back to the motherland, honey. It went back to the
I love it.
motherland.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I flew over there, when I flew to the Philippines, I had my hair up in a nice French roll and had my bangs, the slung to the side and had my hair all dolled up. Before I got out of the airport, before I got out of the airport, I was looking like a red hot mess. And I remember, and I could not keep my hair. I wanted my hair straight.
Okay.
At that time, this is 16, this is 17 years ago when
Okay.
I first went. And so at that time, oh my God, I didn't wear my hair in its natural state.
Okay.
I wore my hair straightened out. I could not keep my hair straight for the life of me. And I remember washing my hair and straightening it out, and I remember complaining about the heat and my hair going back to its natural state and it's not doing. I'm tired of all this. And I remember, and I have a picture of it. I have a, no, I don't have it handy, but I have a picture of this little lady, and I'm barely 5 feet tall,
Okay.
but this little lady was shorter than I, and she said in her native tongue, and I asked for translation, she said, I have prayed for years, God send American missionaries to
Ah.
come and speak to us. I have prayed for years. And when they told me that translation, I forgot
Ah.
about my hair. I let it go.
Hmm.
It's like somebody's sitting over here to pray
Hmm.
for you to come and minister to them, and
Hmm.
you're concerned about your hair. You're
Hmm.
concerned about your appearance. You're concerned that you don't
Hmm.
look good enough, that you look like this, and you're going to look like, and somebody's been praying for you to come to their nation and
Hmm.
speak. I lost it, Sean. I
Hmm.
got rid of all
Hmm.
my whole attitude. My whole attitude changed, and my whole attitude changed. And so it was that's one of the lessons. That is one of the
Hmm.
many lessons. And when I
Hmm.
went back, when I and I've kept up with families that are there. I have godchildren there. I have grandbabies, god grandbabies there. I have two
Hmm.
grandbabies. Well, four, because if I leave out Pastor Pam's boys, oh boy, that'll be a fight right there. But I have four grandbabies over there, and my one of the little girls that I knew, she was 9 years old, and she got married to one young man that asked me to be his godmom, and he shows me a picture. I'm like, that's Leah. Oh my God. I've known her since she was 9 years old, and so she is one
Oh.
of the latter two grandbabies that I have there. And so I have sisters and brothers. I have godchildren, and I have
Hmm.
family there. And so I may not go physically there all the time, but my love and my prayer and support, they call
Hmm.
me up, FaceTime or
Yeah.
whatever. But the last time that I went, one of the things, because the conditions may not be as ours, and what we are expecting. So one of the things that I did um, is take an air mattress with me, just in case there wasn't a place
Hmm.
to sleep. And so when they showed me the pallet on the floor, the hard linoleum floor that they had made for me, because I took my sister-in-law with me. I gave her the bed. She was the elder between us,
Mm-hmm.
and I gave
Mm-hmm.
her the bed. And I told the children, I said, this is great, but my old bones can't take it like you young people can. So I have an air mattress with me, and that'll help support me. Okay. So, we'll just take what you have and put it on this air mattress. And it just worked out beautifully. It just worked out
Hmm.
beautifully. And so sometime when we do go, especially on mission trips, we need to prepare. And I tell you, how you and I met was at the celebration of Lynn,
I
was
know.
at her celebration, and she was the one that invited me. She was the one that trained me, and even in her time of just before her time of sickness, and I had to go to the Philippines without her. she was training me and, still training me and developing me in some of the expectations, especially in counsel and wisdom. And one of the things that I have to say is that remember when you go, you take a Western mindset with you. You take the mind of God, you want the mind of God, but within the mind of God, you take a Western perspective
That's
with you,
right. That's right.
And so
Yeah,
you,
and you have to be aware of that because you're being
yeah,
invited in as a guest, right?
yes,
So as being a guest, being invited in, you want to represent yourself as a guest,
yes,
right? And so just like and that's why I was alluding to that because you did this over here, it enabled you to do this over here,
yes, yes.
right? So
And flexibility. You have to have
yes,
that flexibility. And
yes.
and not to cut you off, but even in the job market, we have to have that flexibility. You don't go in a place being high minded. Yeah, you're confident of your skills. You're confident, but be willing and open to learn something new. Your skills got you there, but honey, you better be open minded if you want to stay there. I remember going in at the Boeing Company and all the things, and I had went to technical school for my administrative skills. Although I had skills, from high school, went through schooling and went to through my small jobs and that, then that was something that we did, right? But let me tell you, there was something that when I went to Boeing, what happened was I said, well, the manager asked me to print out a letter. And when I typed out the letter, he says, no, I told you I want this all on one page. Well, I put it the way I was trained in school, right?
Okay.
And I also worked at Seattle Repertory Theater, which is another one
Okay.
of the greatest places that I worked. For a year, I worked at Seattle Repertory Theater, and so I had training, I had skills, I had knowledge, and so one of the colonel that I worked for, he said, "You have learned that way. Now you're going to learn the Boeing way." And ever since then, I've always kept that in mind. I may have learned this way. I may have, see, that's my son calling. I told you they tracked me down, right? So that was the youngest son
Yeah.
calling me on the house phone, now calling me on the cell
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
And so um, but that was the thing. I learned, I had the educational background and the experience, but when I walked into something new, I had to be flexible. I had to be
Uh-huh.
flexible to hear and to see how that company did it. I brought
That's
my skills and my expertise, but I had to be flexible to learn another way, which was their way. Which was their way.
which prepared you to go into other countries.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what's so fascinating. It truly is fascinating to see in hindsight looking back, right? but
yes,
but one thing that in what you've shared today is what blesses me, and I know is going to bless other viewers, is by taking what somebody else has already walked through, right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
can avoid having to have the hindsight and say,
yeah,
snap, I should have done it this way, right?
yeah.
And so, but you've demonstrated, there's another verse that says, blessed is a council of multitude, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
you put yourself, whether it be, in different environments, to learn,
Yes.
because
Yes.
you even said it, we never stop learning. We
We
never
never
stop
stop
we
learning.
never stop learning. And also, I like that you say there's life after retirement, because if you think of other people that obviously you're not sharing names, okay, people in the distance, maybe not close to your proximity, okay, but those who have worked for the purpose of retiring and think they're
Yeah.
not going to do anything, how is, per se, their health weathering compared to yours in your vivacious active self, right? There's a difference.
Yeah, there and I've had unfortunately, I've had a couple of friends that waited so late and then passed away and didn't get to enjoy their retirement. Didn't get to enjoy didn't get to enjoy their retirement, which is heartbreaking. It's very heartbreaking. And so the life after retirement, I wanted to I I couldn't imagine myself sitting at home doing absolutely nothing. And I think part of me, Monday is like my day off,
Okay.
and that if I wanted to become a couch potato, I could, or and so but absolutely, it was like for me, one of the things I wanted to do after retirement is I volunteered. I'd start volunteering as a chaplain for the Renton Police Department, Renton Police and Fire. And so I volunteer when I get a phone call or when I get a text. Actually, they will text me and tell me what's going on, and they need a chaplain for either the fire or either the police, or sometime I've had the chief of police to directly call me on certain situations and needed me to handle. And so that was one way of me being active and giving back to my community. The other thing that I did after retirement is that I finished my college education. I really thank God for going. I thank God for those 32 years because one of the things that Boeing afforded me, not to just travel for missions and travel, vacations and the things that I did with my family, but it also afforded me a great education. So they paid for the majority of my college education, and that was before I retired.
1 second, I got a backup plug in here. Okay, so we had to switch.
Yeah, and so I before I retired, I had 7 classes to do to finish. And so I finished the 7 classes pretty much on my own support and a little financial aid, yes. And so but I didn't want to get heavily into debt, and so but my college is all paid off. My diploma sits in the back of me. Um, first generation graduate, you know, and so very very proud of that and worked hard for it. So that life at and then after retirement, then I got busy and started working on my book.
Yay! Yes, we haven't mentioned your book yet.
Yes, I don't know if you how well you can see it,
Yep,
but
bring it in.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
tell everybody the name.
The name of the book is The Widow and the Judge. No is not the final answer.
Mm.
No is not the final
Mm.
answer. You can
Mm.
purchase the book on Amazon.
That's right.
And I'm in fact, I'm writing another addition to the book now as I speak. But I am so excited about this book, very, very excited about this book and what the Lord has given me regarding the book.
That's right. And when sister, when I post this on YouTube, I will have a link directly to it. Now, is what are the different platforms on which to purchase it? Can they do it at your website? Is it on
They
Amazon?
can do it
Is it
on my website. They
okay?
can do it on my website, or they can do it on Amazon. They can get the
Okay.
book form, or they can download the PDF reader form,
Oh, I
the
like
Kindle
that. Yes,
form. Because
yes.
some
That's
people like Kindle form reading.
yes.
I have a few books on Kindle, to
Okay.
downloadable books, but
Okay.
I am still a paper
Yeah.
person, paperback person. And that was one thing that I was going to share with our audience is that sometime you may not be able to go to different conferences or go to different platforms, but pick up a book and read.
That's right. That's
I'm
right.
an
That's
avid
right.
reader. I'm an avid reader. So if I'm not listening to something, I am reading. I'm reading,
Yes.
educating myself. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is so good because, right here, one of my people I like to promote, this is not paid for, they're not paying me to promote it, but
Yeah.
right here, Dr. Caroline Leaf is switch on your brain every day, right? And
Yes.
we're
I
always
have a couple of
learning.
her books too.
Yeah, we're always learning and we're always growing. And so that those links will be connected
Okay.
to the bottom of your YouTube, so viewers can reach out to you. But I love it. No, no is not the answer. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yes.
It's so important. And so I would just ask that I just want to thank you. Thank you, Pastor Francis, for coming on
Thank you for
today.
this
And yeah,
opportunity.
and I love how it was organically taken a certain way to speak to the parents, to
Yeah.
speak to the career mind, to speak to after, and it just I couldn't have pulled the questions out of you, and so they were just laid out perfectly. And I'm looking forward to us having you on again sometime.
Yes.
I really appreciate the time you gave us today. And to all of our viewers, I would just like to say thank you for tuning
Thank
into
you. Thank
this
you so much.
episode of
Yes.
Sagionic 1027. May the
Thank you so
Lord
much.
bless you. May the Lord
Yes.
keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon me. Blessings. Bye.
Blessings. Bye-bye. God bless.